everyone. Today we are going to discuss about the normal structure of the heart. As we all know, the heart is a muscular pump which can circulate the whole blood of the body in the whole body. As this shape of the heart is somewhat conical in this shape, and the size is like the clenched fist, and the weight of the heart is different in both males and females. Males have somewhat higher or heavier weight than the females. Males have average weight of the heart somewhat 300 to 350 grams, and females have the weight of 250 to 300 grams. So the basic function of the heart is to pump the blood to the whole body. Then normal structure, it contains the four chambers. These four chambers, here the upper two chambers or the superior chambers are known as the atrium, and the lower two chambers are known as the ventricles. The upper two chambers, atrium, is also divided into two parts. The right side of the atrium is called as the right atrium, and the left one is called as a left atrium. Same way, the left side of the ventricle is called a left ventricle, and the right side of the ventricle is called as a right ventricle. Both the atriums are separated by a septum. This septum is called as a interatrial septum. When it is present in the both two atrium, then it is called as a interatrial septum. When it is present in the both ventricle, then it is called as a interventricular septum. As you can see in the diagram, the ventricles are larger than the atrium. Also, the walls of the ventricles are thicker than the atrium because it can pump the blood in a higher intensity than the atrium, because atrium can pump the blood up to the intensity, blood can move only till up to ventricle, and ventricle have to pump the whole body and up to the lungs. So due to that reason, the ventricles have the thicker wall than the atrium. Also, from the both ventricle, the left ventricle wall is more thicker than the right ventricle wall. This is because the left ventricle has to pump the blood to the whole body, and right ventricle has only pump the blood up to the lungs. So that's why the left ventricle have the much thicker than the right ventricle. Now we are going to discuss about the valves present in the heart. There are four valves present in the heart: first, second, third, fourth. There are two types of valves present. The valves present between the atrium and ventricle. Atrium and ventricle, these both are called as atrioventricular valves. And the other two valves are called as semilunar valves. The two atrioventricular valves are, this one is a tricuspid and this one is a bicuspid, and these two both are semilunar valve, and it can be given name on the basis of in which vessels it is present. If it is present in the aorta, then it is called as a aortic valve, and if it is present in the pulmonary artery, then it is called as a pulmonary valve. The tricuspid valve is present between the right atrium and right ventricle. The bicuspid valve is present between a left atrium and left ventricle. And pulmonary valve is present at the starting or arising of the pulmonary artery, and the aortic valve is present at the starting point of the aorta. So this one is a tricuspid valve, this one is a bicuspid valve, this is a pulmonary valve, this is a aortic valve. So these both are called as a atrioventricular valve, and these both are semilunar valve. The name tricuspid and bicuspid was given on the basis of tricuspid valve can have the three flaps. The flaps contain flaps or leaflets, whatever we call. The tricuspid valve contain a 3 leaflets or flaps, and bicuspid valve contain the 2 flaps or leaflets. So the name was we called as it as a tricuspid and bicuspid valve. The pulmonary valve and aortic valve contain 2 flaps or leaflets. Now we are going to discuss about the layers of the heart, or the what was the wall of the heart contains. The heart's wall is made up of the 3 layers. The outermost layer we called as a pericardium, the inner one which is we called as a myocardium, and the inner one which is called as a endocardium. The pericardium, myocardium and endocardium. Pericardium, the outermost, middle one, myocardium, and the inner one, endocardium. Again, pericardium, the outer one, myocardium, the inner, middle one, and endocardium, the inner one. Again, the pericardium has contained the 2 layers. Outer one is called as a visceral layer, and the outer layer is called as a parietal, and inner one is known as a visceral. Inner one, visceral, why? It is connected to the heart, so it is one type of organ. Visceral means organ, it is attached to the organ, so it is called as a visceral one, and outermost parietal one. Both between the visceral and parietal layer there is a present fluid which is called as a pericardial fluid, and this pericardial fluid helps in the lubrication or absorb the friction which affect the heart, and it can smoothen the activity of the heart. Now we talk about the myocardium. Myocardium is made up of the muscle tissues, and the special muscles which is present in the heart are cardiac muscles. And now we endocardium. Endocardium is the innermost layer of the heart, and which is a smooth shiny, covers all the chambers. It can covers the valves also, and whole the chambers also. Now we are talking about which type of blood vessels can enter into the heart and can exit from the heart or arises from the heart. First of all, we talk about the right atrium. Which blood vessels can enter into the right atrium? First of all, right atrium can receive the vessels. These are 2. Which one? The superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. And from the right ventricle, a pulmonary artery can arise. This is a pulmonary artery. In the left atrium, there is entry of the 4 pulmonary veins. These pulmonary 4 veins can enter into the left atrium. From the left atrium, it can move into the blood can move into the left ventricle, and from that a blood vessel arises which is aorta. Again we can repeat, in the right atrium there is an entry of 2 veins. This is superior vena cava, which can collect the blood from upper part of the body, and it can given to the right atrium. And second one is inferior vena cava, which can collect the blood from the lower part of the body, and it can put it into the right atrium. Then after, from the right ventricle there is a rising of the pulmonary artery, or whatever we call, this is a pulmonary trunk, and then it can divided into 2 arteries, that is a pulmonary artery. Each pulmonary artery can enter into the lungs. Again, the left atrium can have entry of the pulmonary vein, and the left atrium have the pulmonary vein entry, and left ventricle have the arising of the aorta. This is the arch of aorta. Now, this inferior and superior vena cava can collect the deoxygenated blood from whole the body, and it can enter into the right atrium. This hole is a deoxygenated blood. Then it can enter into the right ventricle through the tricuspid valve and then goes into the pulmonary artery and into the lungs. Here the whole left side of the heart, or whatever we called atrium or ventricles, contain the oxygenated blood. This pulmonary veins comes from the lungs, which can get the oxygenated blood into the left atrium. Then through the bicuspid valve it can enter into the left ventricle, and through the left ventricle it can enter into the aorta. Then the oxygenated blood can supply to the whole body. Oh yeah, I was forget to tell about some two structures present in the heart. In the ventricles, a special type of muscles are present, which is called as papillary muscles. In both the ventricles, a papillary muscles are present, through which a thread-like structure called as a chordae tendineae, which is attached to the one side to the papillary muscles and from other side to the tricuspid valve and bicuspid valve. This helps in the opening and closing of the valves. So this is thread-like structure which is called as a chordae tendineae, and this is a papillary muscles. Chordae tendineae, thread-like structures, and papillary muscles. So we can do a quick revisions so you can remember easily. The heart conical in the shape. Males have the heavier weight than the females. Males have 300 to 350 gram and females have 250 to 300 grams. Then heart contains the four chambers: right atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle. Both the atrium and ventricles are separated by a septum. This septum we called as in the atrium it is called as interatrial septum, and in the ventricle it is called as the interventricular septum. The four valves are present. Which one? The two valves, it is atrioventricular valves, and two valves is the semilunar valves. The atrioventricular valves, it is present between atrium and ventricles, and semilunar valves which is present in pulmonary and aortic vessels. Tricuspid valves present between right atrium and right ventricle. Bicuspid valve is present between left atrium and left ventricles. Then layers of the heart walls: pericardium, the outermost; myocardium, middle one; and endocardium, innermost. Pericardium also contains two layers: visceral and parietal. Visceral, which is the innermost, and parietal, which is the outermost layer. Myocardium made up of the cardiac muscles. Endocardium, the innermost lining of the heart wall. Then after, right atrium can have the entry of the two veins: inferior vena cava and superior vena cava. Inferior and superior vena cava both contain the deoxygenated blood came from the whole body. Then after, pulmonary artery arises from the right ventricle. Left atrium have the entry of the pulmonary veins came from the lungs which contain the oxygenated blood. Then left ventricle arises aorta which contain also oxygenated blood and supply to whole body. Now we are going to start the circulation of the blood in the whole body. From the whole body, the deoxygenated blood through the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava enter into the right atrium. Through the right atrium, it can enter into the right ventricle, and from the right ventricle it can enter into the pulmonary artery. From the pulmonary artery it can enter into the lungs, and in the lungs it can purify or get oxygenated, and the oxygenated blood through the pulmonary veins enter into the left atrium, and from the left atrium it can enter into the left ventricle through the bicuspid valve and SA nodes, AV nodes. Then after this one is bundle of His. Then it can have the two branches. Bundle of His can divide into two branches, right and left branches. Then after this one, these two both are we called as a Purkinje fibers. Again, the SA nodes, AV node. Then this one is bundle of His. These two both are right and left branches. And this one is Purkinje fibers. Right and left branches. SA nodes are present on the upper side of the right atrium. You can see in the diagram, upper side of the right atrium and on the posterior wall of the right atrium. Also, it from left ventricle, it can enter into the aorta. Blood can enter into the aorta and then goes into the whole body. Once again, the right atrium receives the deoxygenated blood from whole body through superior and inferior vena cava. Then it enter into the right ventricle through tricuspid valves, and from right ventricle the deoxygenated blood enter into the pulmonary artery and enter into the lungs. In the lungs it can oxygenated and enter into the pulmonary veins and then goes into the left atrium. Then it can goes into left ventricle through the bicuspid valve. From the left ventricle it can enter into the aorta, and through aorta the blood can supply to whole body. Now we are going to start a topic of a conduction system in the heart. It is responsible for regulating rate and rhythm of heart and for contraction of chambers. In normal language, we can say pumping action of the heart was dependent on the conduction system. Conduction system was located in the myocardium, the innermost layer of the heart. It is located in that layer. First of all, it contains the basically some structures. From the SA nodes, impulses are generated. So SA node is also called as a pacemaker. From the SA nodes, impulses get transmitted to AV nodes. AV nodes is presented in the lower portion of right atrium, somewhat near to the interatrial septum. From SA node to AV node, the impulses are transmitted through AV bundles are present here, and through these bundles it can reach up to the AV node. Through the AV node, the impulse transmit to bundle of His. From bundle of His, it can transmit it to right and left bundle branches. Then after it can enter into the Purkinje fibers. And by reaching up to Purkinje fiber, the muscles of the heart get contracted. Now we are going to discuss about the blood supply of the heart. The blood supply of the heart was given by two main We are going to discuss about the blood supply of heart. The blood supply of the heart was by coronary arteries. Coronary arteries, it is arises from the aorta. It can arises immediately after the aortic valve. It can divided into two arteries, right coronary artery and left coronary artery. Left coronary artery again divided into two major branches. This is a left anterior descending coronary artery, as it is present on anterior side and it can goes downward. That's why it is called as the anterior descending coronary artery. Then another major branch of the left coronary artery is left circumflex coronary artery, as it can goes backwardly from anterior side. That's why its name was called as the left circumflex coronary artery. Then after right coronary artery, it has some branches but not major. Okay, so three major branches of coronary arteries: right coronary artery, left circumflex coronary artery, left anterior descending coronary artery. Now we are which artery can supply which part of the heart. First of all, left anterior descending coronary artery can supplies to apex. This one is the apex of the heart. Then after, anterior part of the left ventricle. This one is left ventricle. So anterior part was supplied by this LAD. It is short formly it is called as a LAD, left anterior descending coronary artery. Then after, anterior two-third of the interventricular septum. Anterior two-third. Now the left circumflex coronary can supply the left atrium and lateral wall of the left ventricles. Left ventricle. Okay. Then after, right coronary artery, it can supply the posterior part. This one is left ventricle. So posterior part of left ventricle was supplied by right coronary artery and anterior one was supplied by LAD, left anterior descending coronary artery. Then after, RCA means right coronary artery can supply first of all the posterior part of the left ventricle. Then after, posterior one-third of the interventricular septum. Anterior two-third was supplied by the LAD and posterior two-third was supplied by the right coronary artery, RAD. Then after, right coronary artery also supplies the right atrium and right ventricle both, as it was present on right side. So both the right and left right atrium and ventricle supplied by the right coronary artery. So quick revise. This one is aorta. From that, this one is a left coronary artery. Its two branches: left circumflex coronary artery and this one is left anterior descending coronary artery. This one is right coronary artery. Left anterior descending artery can supply apex, anterior part of left ventricle and anterior two-third part of interventricular septum. Left circumflex coronary artery can supplies left atrium and lateral wall of the left ventricle. Right coronary artery can supply first of all right atrium and right ventricle, posterior one-third of interventricular septum and posterior part of left ventricle. This was some notes of whatever we have discussed previously. You can go through it and it was beneficial for you. If you have any doubt through this topic, then you can comment on the comment section and ask to me. Thank you.